good, and then for my.
Okay, so we can start. Hope I'm audible enough.
So let's go to question 7.
Mark, you can confirm.
Is we actually got it correct on that. We also got question 8 correct. Okay, so identity federation. Let me give you an example. For instance, you can realize this when you want to access.
Adeline, we can hear you. You can go on.
Okay, thank you so much. So welcome all of you to our today's session. I'm glad that you really created time to join our event. And as we celebrate the International Women's Day, we extend our appreciation to the women out there for the good work they've been doing to the community and to the technology space. So today we are glad to have our very own Veliswa Boya, and she has something good in store for us. So we can't wait to hear from her. Yes, so I'll invite her so that she can start with the presentation. Hi, Veliswa.
Hi, Adeline. Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. Thank you for inviting me today. So I hope you're not expecting to see a PowerPoint because I did not bring that today. We are not going to be stepping through a PowerPoint. And I also hope that you came prepared to ask questions and give answers because this is meant to be an interactive session today. The only slide that you're going to see of a PowerPoint, can I share a screen quickly? Adeline or Mark? You're only going to see one slide, and this is just my introduction. So in case we haven't met, hi Timothy, in case we haven't met, you are seeing the screen that I'm sharing. So that's just a quick introduction of me and what I do. I'm Veliswa Boya. I'm a developer advocate at AWS. So what we do as developer advocates, we work with the community of AWS. The whole idea is to help you be successful as you build on AWS and be successful in your journey on AWS. I think some of you on the call, I know Adeline and Mark are AWS community builders. That's what I mean when I talk about being successful in your journey on AWS as well, because we've got all these programs that you can become a part of as you advance in your interactions with the AWS community. So my role is to support you. I do more of the tech support side of things, whereas we've got community managers. Maybe you've seen Tembilen Vlogu. She's our community manager, so she does the community support side of things, but I still do community support, but technical. So if you want to start writing blog posts and you need someone to maybe even co-write the blog post with you or check your blog post for you before you publish it, I'm that person. Or give a technical talk at a meetup, give a technical talk at a conference, I'm that person that you can reach out to. So quick introduction. So that's me, that's what I do. And my background is I started out a long time ago, and I think I've been in tech longer than most of you have been alive. Definitely, I've been in tech longer than Adeline has been alive. I started out as a software developer, and then I became a systems analyst, business analyst, then I became a solutions architect, then a cloud engineer. Just before I joined AWS, I was a cloud engineer. I've worked in banking. I've worked mainly for banks here in South Africa. I worked for car manufacturing. My first job actually was at Mercedes-Benz as a junior developer. Worked for insurance companies, worked for state-owned entities. So that's my background. And now I'm going to stop sharing because I want to start asking you all questions. And I would like you, there are about, how many of us on the call? 24 of us on the call. I will not move on to the next question until I've had about 50% of us respond. Because what you tell me is what's going to guide what I actually do today. So let me know in the chat. Are you in tech already, or are you looking to get into tech? So are you in tech? So yes or no in the chat. "12 responses before we move on. You are in tech. I'm seeing. Okay. Okay, great. So most of us are in tech, and there is someone who is not in tech yet. And my next question: when you saw the title, owning your career path on tech, in tech, what did you think it was about? Did you think we're going to, again, it's going to be a yes or no answer. Did you think it's about how you progress through the various roles in tech? That's what you thought the talk is about? Okay, then I think we are on the right track. That's actually what it's about. And the entire reason that we came up with this talk, when we were planning this with Adeline and Mark and all the organizers, is to talk through how we navigate our careers in tech, because it can be very challenging and it can be very daunting. And a lot of the time people don't know where to start. And it's part of the reason that when I did my introduction, I showed the various roles that I've fulfilled in tech. I was hoping it shows the navigation of various roles in tech, that you can actually do that. You can move from different roles in tech, but it's going to take a lot of ownership on your side as well. Of course, we always are faced with so many challenges to even get into tech. I know someone who's still looking into getting into tech. We can be faced with challenges with even getting into tech, and once we're in, we still have challenges navigating and moving around. So that's what we wanted to address today, just to give some pointers. And we'll ask some of you on the call as well, if any of you have navigated or you were able to move from role 1 to role 2, you can maybe unmute yourself at some point and tell us how you actually did that. So this is going to be a bit about sharing of experiences, like how I did my navigations, but also if there's anyone in the on the call who you've also done your navigation, you can share your stories around how you did it. The reason that the title is saying owning your career path, we attend so many talks where people talk about how they want to empower us, and especially your women in tech talks, it's about empowering you. And then once you've empowered me, then what happens? We are more about talks that can move the needle for you. So when you go to listen to a talk, you should be able to walk away and do something that is tangible for yourself, and not, and that's why I think I don't like the word empower. And I know, Adeline, we were working through the title, I was removing that word because I don't like it. And especially women in tech talks, it's about empowering people. Then what after you've empowered me? So owning it, because when you say own it, it shows that there is a lot that's on you to make it happen. When someone comes from someone else and they empower you, it always sounds like you don't have the power, but you do have the power. You can feel like you don't have it, but you do have it. And I'm going to share in the chat a link to Amazon leadership principles. When I talk about owning, there is a lot. We have what we call at AWS, at Amazon, actually, leadership principles, and they guide everything that we do. They guide how we navigate and plan our day and how we approach our work. And one of those leadership principles is ownership. And when it says ownership, it says you're a leader, you are an owner, and you look at things long term instead of short term. And so it's the leadership principles that I wanted to tie today's talk to. I'm going to share the link, and you can go through these in your own time. And before I joined AWS, if you're going to come and interview at AWS, you're going to need to know these leadership principles, because when we interview you, it's a lot around whether you can actually align to these leadership principles, because they are our mission statement. They guide everything that we do. before I joined AWS, I thought I needed to know this so that I can pass the interview and be accepted. But what I've learned over time is that they've become a very important guide for me in how I approach a lot of things. And this is why I wanted to tie today to a leadership principle. And so again, talking about owning, I'm saying it's on you. But we know that there are obstacles. So what I'm going to do, just to show a little bit of that ownership that I'm talking about, I'm going to give you the reasons why all my career navigations, why I made the changes. So I started out as a software developer. I mentioned I did that for about 12 years. I wrote code for about 12 years and different programming languages. Started out on the mainframe, did Java, some Python. I did move around programming languages a lot. And a lot of what programming language I worked on was dictated by where I worked, because especially if you work for banks, all their big, very important applications run on mainframes still. So if you want to work on important applications, there's no getting away from mainframe too much. And it was always that trade-off for me, because I like to work on applications that matter. So I didn't want to work on a reporting application. Nothing wrong with it, but I didn't want to work on that. I wanted to work, I always used to say I wanted to work on the application where if we make a mistake, the entire bank is going to come to a standstill. I know it sounds so egotistical, but I wanted to work on things that matter. I always chased that. And when I worked for one of the big banks in here in South Africa, exactly in line with what I just said, I remember the one day I took this program live and I forgot to, I think there was a line of code I had in, this was long before DevOps, I forgot to remove this line of code that I had in when I was testing, and it went live. And what it actually did was that every time someone went to an ATM to withdraw a statement, the program would go into a loop, so they would not get their statement. That was nationally. If you went to withdraw a statement, it would do that. So it's a very big visible mistake. So when things go wrong, it's really scary, but it shows the significance of that application. So I always wanted to work on those. But now the trade-off sometimes was the tech was a bit behind, because mainframes are still what drive huge transactions for banks especially. So I did that for about 12 years, and then I wanted to move away from writing code. And when I moved from the bank to working for the local national broadcaster, I was able to join the broadcaster as a systems analyst. What was great with that is that it was still tech, so I could still work with the tech people, but I wasn't writing code anymore. I was over writing code, but I could still stay close to the tech without being so that I need to write code. But it taught me new skill sets, because now I had to know how to communicate so that I can document things. I had to design what applications were going to look like. So that was a great challenge for me. So I did that for a while. Then when I moved from the broadcast, I now joined a bank. I joined a bank again, and it was a different bank though, but they were starting to really build out the business analysis departments, looking for business analysts. And also it was around about the same time that I was starting a family anyway. So it was a good opportunity for me to do something a little bit more predictable. And I found business analysis was predictable in terms of working hours. Because you're writing code, you up late at night. And I used to find that with a business analysis, I could kind of dictate my hours a little bit. So it worked out for me quite well. So I did that at that bank. And it was a great challenge. I learned so much. Being a bank, you're really exposed to a lot of change, a lot of technology. And I was exposed to a lot of tech and changing tech. Which was great exposure for me. But what was also great with being a business analyst, now it really cuts you off from tech. You talk more with business stakeholders. And so I had to learn that. And a lot of us who are in tech, we struggle with talking business. So I had to learn how to talk business and how to talk to business people, which was a complete shift for me. It's a complete shift in how you think and how you communicate. But that was good skill sets to learn. It took me a long time before I could be comfortable in that role, because I was so used to thinking like a techie. So I did that for quite a while, because that bank in total, I stayed with them for about 6 years, but I could change roles and change teams. And that's why I stayed long, because I could move around and navigate. But now, after doing business analysis for a while, I think because of my technical background, I kind of miss tech again. And now I look for opportunities to be close to tech again. But I couldn't go back to coding. And solutions architect was starting to be a role that people were talking about a lot. And I thought that was quite an interesting role, because you had to know tech so that you can design those technical solutions, but you didn't have to write code. But now, because my current role was not a technical role, it was not easy to make that shift. Even though I was looking to shift inside the company when I worked, that manager, because he knows me as a business analyst, so he doesn't picture me as someone technical, how on earth is he going to give me an opportunity as a solutions architect when you need to be so technical to be a solutions architect? Although I had the years experience, which they used to say they will trust you if you've been in tech for about 10 years, or so, that's what they said at the time. I'm not saying that's what everyone else says, that's what those guys said. But still, my current role was not technical, so he was very hesitant. And this is where the test came, when I talk about owning your career path, because they did not make it easy for me to move in that role, into that solutions architect role. Although they had openings, it was not automatic for me to move into it. So now, what was I going to do so that I can actually be in a position where they can let me become a solutions architect? And that's where a lot of tests came in. And that's where having mentors really helped me. That was, for me, a very critical time, to have other people who could guide me into how to navigate. And I'm going to very quickly talk about mentors. This is not about mentors today. The importance of always having a mentor. And also, when you do have a mentor, you need to, I see a lot of people who approach people on social media and say, can you be my mentor? And then when I get those DMs, and then I say, what do you want from me as your mentor? And people can't articulate. You need to be very clear what you need from someone when you ask them to mentor you. And it can be a long list. I'm mentoring people inside Amazon now. Some come with a long list of what they want. You can't expect a long list from one person. When you approach a person, it must be something specific, because you don't have to have only one mentor. You can have 5 mentors. At that time, I had 3 mentors, and they were for different reasons. So you must know what you want from each of my 3 mentors. I had a specific thing for mentor X and a specific thing for mentor Y. You must know what you want, so you need to think very carefully about what you want from them. Also, when I talk about mentor, it's not always about approaching people and asking them to mentor you, because people are doing this a lot these days. Like, can you be my mentor? What do you mean? And also, I could be your mentor without me even knowing that I'm your mentor. So you could observe people from a distance, and they could be your mentor. So you don't have to send them DMs and asking them. And what you tend to find also with the very visible people, they tend to have tons of people asking them to be mentors. So chances of them responding to you when you ask them is that they're probably gonna say no and never respond to you. So don't look for the trendy, visible people and ask them to mentor you. It doesn't have to be that. One of the people, I had 3 mentors. One of the people who mentored me, who really helped me navigate into that role, he had a senior role at a previous bank where I worked, but the most invisible person you'll ever meet. He's not on social media. So if you're not very good with that eye of identifying someone, you would never see him. So there's that as well. Don't just go for the celebrities and the very loud on social media people. Go for someone that you just admire what they do. They don't have to be trendy people. They don't have to be social media. They don't have to be. But this is someone who can sit with you, listen to you, and guide you. And also the important thing with a mentor, it's not someone who's here to make you feel good. So if you're looking for someone who's going to make you feel good, you're in the wrong place. Especially this one person that I'm talking about, I had meetings with him where afterwards I'd walk away crying, and it has to be like that, because it means They are making you uncomfortable. And he was asking me questions that were making me, it's like going to therapy, making me feel uncomfortable. So that's an important thing. You don't want someone who's just going to sit there with you and say, oh, like when that other manager didn't want me. I could have had a mentor who says, oh, he's just horrible, or he's this, or he's this. That's not helping me. So this mentor that I had, he said, no, it's for you to go back and say X, Y, Z. You cannot give up. It's for you to do this and this and that. He put it all on me. And then when I talk about ownership, it's exactly that. So how he helped me to go from being a business analyst to a solutions architect, because I didn't know how to be prepared so that I can now be ready for this person to take me on. It took uncomfortable work on my side, but I had to do the uncomfortable work, else it was not going to happen. Things like kind of the guidance that I had, things like finding out what do solutions architects really do, so that when I know what they actually do, I can identify the gap between the skill set that I have now and the skill set that I don't have, that I want to have. So it's really important. And to find out what they do, I spoke to various solutions architects. I was blessed because where I worked there, it was a huge IT shop. So if you want to be a database administrator, there were database administrators there. You could go and talk to them and ask them, what do they do? So I found solutions architects, and you can find those on social media if where you are now, you don't you don't see someone doing this role. Ask them what they do. Join communities like this one where there are people from different backgrounds, and then you can learn so that you know what the gaps are. And again, when you approach people, especially on social media, again, because remember, most people on social media, especially now on LinkedIn, connections, it's not, we don't connect to people we know anymore. You send me a connect request, I'm going to accept it because that's just how social media is. So now, if you're going to start sending me DMs, you have to be very specific. You have to be clear, and you cannot assume that this person knows what you want. So again, clarity. When you approach them and ask them, you have to be really, really clear. So identifying the gaps between where I wanted to be and where I was so that I can fill those gaps. It took me a year to prepare for that role before that guy could finally say, okay, I will take you on. And part of that preparation was learning the skill sets that I didn't have, shadowing people who were doing the role that I wanted that I didn't have. What it meant with shadowing, it meant working extra hours because I still had my normal day job. So I went to one solutions architect and I said, what things can I help you with that you could easily hand over to me because you don't have time for? I can help you with those. And because I was already a business analyst, and business analysts document a lot, and solutions architects hated documenting, so I did that part for him. So I would go to some of the meetings, and then at night I would do the documentation. And when I say documenting, I don't mean taking minutes. I mean writing an actual spec, and to find something valuable that you can actually do for them that is easy for you to do, but you can learn from. So it meant doing all of those things. It meant reading up a lot about technologies that I didn't know. I came from being a developer. I only knew about coding. I didn't know how to protect, how to secure applications on the internet. So I had to learn about firewalls and all of those. And then I remember one of the meetings I had with this manager, because I thought I'd done enough by now. So I went to him, I said, oh, I'm sure I'm ready now. And he said, no, you still are not. And I walked out of that meeting crying because what else does he want from me? And then I was scheduled to have another catch up with my mentor, and I told him, and then he said, what did you do? And I said, I ran out crying. And then he said, what else did you do? I said, nothing. And he says, no, that's not good enough. Now you're going to go back to him and you're going to ask him, when he says you're still not ready, what else does he want from you? And had I not had that meeting, had I not gone back to do that meeting, I don't think I would have ended up as a solutions architect. So it meant doing a lot of things that were very uncomfortable. So I went back to that guy and I said, what can I do? Because you're still saying I'm not ready. And he said, if you can design one architecture for me that will go into production I'll take you as a solutions architect. So had I not asked him, I wouldn't have had that feedback. So I did that, worked with one of the lead solution architects, took one to production, a small application, and that was enough. And they then brought me onto the team as a solutions architect. And yeah, so it meant doing a lot of uncomfortable things. So now talk about owning, it includes doing a lot of things that take you out of your comfort zone. Also include, as you do that, include mentors, because they can give you that guidance, ask you those difficult questions, kind of be your mirror for you as well. So that, because it's not easy to do anything on your own. So the more people that you have that you can bounce ideas off, the more helpful it is for you as well. So that was the move from business analyst to solutions architect. And then cloud engineer happened just about the same time. As I was becoming a solution architect, AWS was becoming a thing. And that was something else that caught my interest. So then I started learning AWS. Again, it was doing that on my own time, because where I was at the time, the adoption wasn't so big yet. So that meant doing it in my own time, finding communities like the one that we're part of now, being on the internet and listening to what people are talking about, being really, really curious. And that's what helped me with the transition into cloud engineering. And now I was a cloud engineer. How I became a developer advocate, it again took me doing something out of my comfort zone again, because this is not a role that it's very common. So I didn't know what they wanted out of someone who becomes a developer advocate. And again, at the end, someone was a developer advocate on LinkedIn. He was at AWS at the time, and I asked him, what does it take to be a developer advocate? At the time, because I was a cloud engineer, I was starting to blog a little bit about things that I was learning. And that's another thing. When we talk about being involved and engaging with the community, it's not always about sharing expert information or knowledge, because a lot of us, we hold back from sharing because you think you're not an expert yet. And it's not about you becoming an expert. I used to write about things that I was learning, very beginner level. That's what I used to share. When I was learning to get certified, I would pass a certification, and I would write about how I prepared for that certification. So that's how, if you're looking for an easy way to get into blogging and sharing information in the community, start small. It doesn't have to be, but look for where you can share technical knowledge as well. Beginner level is always a good place to start. There are always people looking for that beginner level knowledge, and share that. And it doesn't have to be perfect. And as you share it, you can say, I know it's not perfect, or I don't think it's perfect. I'm inviting feedback from all of you. Let me know so that I can learn. So this person that I DM'd, he said, because I just said, what does it take to be a developer advocate? And he said, you have to be someone who's already sharing with the community, who there's thought leadership from you. And how are you going to build thought leadership if you're not sharing? So, and how are you going to build thought leadership if you're not at meetups like this one, and you are a speaker from time to time, because you can volunteer to be a speaker here, and giving technical talks. And that's how you build that reputation so that you can become a developer advocate. So again, it took me doing things that were uncomfortable, because I was not comfortable speaking at meetups. I was okay with blogging, but I know there's a lot of us who are not okay with that, still very uncomfortable with it. So again, doing things that take you out of your comfort zone. So I did that, and then I never thought I would get the role, because this tends to be, I know, especially at AWS, there aren't a lot of developer advocates. And there was already a developer advocate here based in Cape Town. I thought I would have to wait for the guy to move on. So it wasn't even a role I was considering. But then after I became an AWS hero, because from my knowledge sharing, I got nominated to be an AWS hero, which became a very life-changing platform for me because of the exposure that it gave me. So when I became an AWS hero, it then put me on that spotlight, so that when the developer advocate role became available and I applied for it, at least I kind of knew. First I knew about the role because I was out there in the community and interacting with everybody, but also when I went through the checklist of what they look for in a developer advocate, I was already doing a lot of those things as someone who is involved with the community as well. So when I talk about ownership, it's doing things that are not comfortable for you. And also sometimes it will mean doing things that might upset others, but if you know, you're convinced it's the good path for you, that's what you go for. Because when I talk about all these moves, it's like my career changes. A lot of those was a lot of friction because you're working already as a software developer and now you want to leave. That manager where you are, he doesn't like that you want to leave. What are you going to do? Are you going to stay because you're unhappy, or are you going to go after what you want? So sometimes just knowing that you might do things that are not popular, but if you're convinced, you go for it, and just be, as long as you don't bend those bridges. There's not a single person that or team that I've left behind where they can say I was arrogant in how I left, or I upset things in how I left. Even the ones that were uh, mean because I was leaving, you still live gracefully. So being professional as well, because we in this your career is going to be a very long one. The last thing you want to do is to be burning bridges as you leave people. Just live gracefully as you do that, because you never know what tomorrow is going to hold. You might want to go back to that place. We might meet that person somewhere else, because the tech world, as big as it looks, it's also very small. Also just general being professional, you want to live in a graceful way. So like when I left, I would make sure that all my work is closed out. I don't leave things hanging, or if I need to hand over, I make sure that I do the handover so that the next person who takes over from me knows where to go from. Just being professional in how you exit each place that you're exiting. So at this point, I'm going to stop and I'm going to see if there are any questions, and I'm going to start welcoming questions as well. I see Alex is asking how can you get a mentor? I think we already covered that mentors don't have to be people that you can get a mentor from anywhere. Look for someone that you feel aligned to, or someone who's going towards the direction that you want to go in. I also talked about the fact that when you're looking for a mentor, don't, because I think what a lot of people are doing these days, they think they need to go for the very visible people. It doesn't have to be someone visible. Could be someone where you work. They might not even be on social media, but you might like how they carry themselves in the workplace. And also, when you go for a mentor, it doesn't have to be one person fulfilling everything that you need. Also, you must be very clear as in what you want from them when you actually approach them. But again, you don't even have to approach people. It can be someone that you're just observing and admiring from a distance, and they could be your mentor without them even knowing that they are your mentor. I have a ton of mentors that don't know that they are my mentors. I watch them from a distance, and I learn from them. So you could do that. That's how you can get a mentor. So you don't have to have someone that say, "Hey, be my mentor." People always think you have to ask someone to be a mentor. What does that mean? The more I'm in the industry, the more disillusioned I get, because I really don't know what people mean when they say be my mentor. You don't have to do that. You can watch someone from a distance and learn from them. And yeah, so that's how you can get a mentor. And I'm going to ask, so if I am not seeing any questions right now, I'm going to ask you all a question that you can just respond to me in the chat. I saw one person though, so I'm not going to ask this question. So the people who are well, if you are on the call and you wanna move on to the next role, have you reached out to someone who is either in this role or done more reading up about this role that you want to get to, so that you can identify the gaps that are between where you are now and where you want to go? So if you're on the call and you want to move on to the next role, have you done some research already into what this next role is all about? So I'm going to wait for a few people to respond in the chat. Say yes or no. So even if it's a no, you can still respond in the chat. see an interesting one there from Doreen. Struggling to move into cloud security and currently you're a cyber security analyst. Can I ask this question not just to Doreen, to everyone on the call as well? As you are considering your next role change, are you limiting yourself? Do you still want to? Are you limiting yourself physically? As an example, if you're in South Africa, if you're in Kenya, are you only looking in Kenya or in South Africa, or are you opening yourself up outside of the borders of where you stay? Because that's another thing these days. What I hear a lot from, especially those of us here in Africa, with the entire certification conversation, people are getting certified. Sometimes they're not doing the certifications because they want to do them. They're doing them to get a job. And then when I asked, what do you mean to get a job? And the response is that employers where I stay, they still want to employ you if you are not certified. That's the first thing they look at. So you could know AWS very well, be building on AWS, but if you're not certified, they won't even interview you. Then my question is, why are you limiting yourself to them? Because knowing AWS opens up those borders for you. You can move to the UK, you can move to the US, you can stay where you are and remotely work for an overseas company. So if you are struggling to move, are you looking beyond the borders of where you are? Because sometimes it can be that um, uh, where you are staying right now, those opportunities or that role isn't very common as yet. So you must be comfortable sometimes to move outside of that. If you already are looking, what I'm going to point you to is just the AWS cloud now is um, just scaling up on AWS cloud security. And funny enough, I actually know someone from this user group who was able to move to Poland after learning AWS cloud. So he works for Cisco now. Probably all have met Frank. But I know when I visited you guys last year, he was still looking to navigate getting into cloud security, and we met and we talked and shared a lot of resources with him, pointed him to people who are specializing in AWS cloud security, and that actually worked for him, and he was able to land this really nice role. So making sure that you are following people who are talking AWS cloud security. With AWS cloud, I would get that security certification. I know I always say it doesn't have to be the first thing you go for. I would get that security certification for AWS because it's so specialized. I think that will do help you, but also now start to position yourself to be that thought leader. As you learning cloud security, do those blogging, do the speaking at meetups, submit yourself to speak at conferences. You'll be amazed at the number of people that you'll meet when you speak at conferences, and the people who will be reading your blog post when you post it and you put it out there. If you think your platform is too small, when you share your blog post, don't be shy to tag someone that you think might help you amplify that blog post, um, 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 and start getting your name out there. And you'll be amazed at the kind of opportunities that will come your way. I talked about when I became an AWS hero, and the first user group that reached out to me and asked me to speak at their meetup was actually, I think, Doreen, I did introduce you to them. I just don't know if they reached out to you. They are based in Canada. They specialize in security kind of talks. So they actually asked me to do a cloud security talk. I don't specialize in cloud security, but I could do an entry-level talk at the time. And this was a user group in Canada. Although I was joining them virtually, there were lots of people from Canada who joined that call. And the talk was on a Sunday, night time, my time. And Monday, when I logged into LinkedIn, couldn't believe how many people were offering me jobs in Canada. Like, we'll help you immigrate if you want to come and move here. Because the world is starting to open up and starting to notice us in Africa and starting to see how skilled and how talented we really are. So if you position yourself to be visible, you'll be amazed at what can actually come your way. So that thought leadership, though, is really important. Find those opportunities for where you can share that information. Look out for user groups that only talk security if that's how you want to brand yourself, and just do engagements there. And I can tell you from many stories that I've seen that it will only be a matter of time. But start stepping out of that and just making yourself uncomfortable and doing those engagements. The next question, yeah, student and challenge to pick the right path. Advice that I'm going to give you there as a student, exactly why, and I can see why it's challenging, because as you say, there's so the tech is quite vast. And then another thing is that people, and I think this is just tech, we glamorize a role in tech. Like software developers are so glamorized. It's like, if you are in tech and you're not a software developer, you're not good enough to be in tech. That is not true. And it's so not true. And that's what's stopping people sometimes for even getting involved in contributing to open source. They think the only way to contribute to open source is if you're coding. It's so not true. So how to pick what you want to go into in tech? Really go for what you really enjoy doing in tech. If you enjoy coding, go for coding. If you think business analysis is your thing, go for that. If you think networks is your thing, go for that. Don't listen to all the trends and all the fads, because people will always do that. But I know I get like when people glamorize being software developers, people glamorize data scientists. It is so vast for a reason. You can pick the thing that you're comfortable with. Another thing that I say, go for what you really want to do, is that once you're in that role, you better be enjoying it, because when things get very tough and you're doing something that you don't enjoy, it will not be a place that you want to be in. So go for something that you really want to do. Don't listen to people saying, oh, if you are not coding and you're in tech, you're not really in tech. You are in tech, just that you're not coding. So yeah, go for something that you're really drawn to. So now the next one from Raymond, you say you've done your research and you're passionate about your future role in tech. Your biggest challenge is changing from a non-tech career to a tech one. And now you're taking baby steps. That's fine, taking those baby steps, but what's really going to help you is being part of this community. Information is what is really going to help you. You want information so that you can know what things to learn. And you need to be out there with the community so that you can see what things to learn, what trends are out there in terms of tech, so that you can know that you learn those. And that's how you will transition from a non-tech. And also being non-tech, and no one is going to hire you into a tech role when you cannot evidence that you can do the thing already. Remember my story about going from a business analyst into a solutions architect. I had to evidence that I can solution architect, and that's why the guy had me design at least one while I was still a business analyst, have that go to production before he would accept me. And I was still lucky, because had I been trying to leave that company, no one would have, people outside wouldn't have given me that opportunity, because I don't work for them. So now that's going to be your case. Now you're going to have to evidence. So if you want to become a software developer, start building applications, publishing them on GitHub. Have those projects, things that you're building, so that we can actually talk about what you've built. When you go for an interview, you can say, I built that application and that. And as you say you've built them, you must be able to talk into detail about how you built them and know the technologies and why you made those choices. And the only way you'll be able to do that is if you are building. So it's very important if you're going from a non-tech into a tech. And I know it's very you're going to be very nervous to do that when you. I know how nerve-wracking it is to do something for the first time. So if you're not tech and I'm saying build something, you're going to get very nervous. How do I build? Where do I start? At AWS, we have workshops that can help you get started. We've got tutorials that can. I'm going to share links now to the tutorials and there, so you can start building there. And as you get comfortable, build your own applications. Think about the one thing that you want to build and then build those. So that's how you can get started. And also join user groups like this one, because who knows, maybe in the next couple of months, they might host a workshop or might host. And then if you are here, you will be able to participate. And I'm sharing the link now to tutorials that we have, hands-on tutorials that can get you started with building on AWS. Okay, and then how can one be an AWS hero? So I did touch on that as well, same as becoming a community builder. In this group, on this call, there's so many community builders. You've got Edeline, who's one, you've got Mark, I saw Terrence is on, and I think William is on, and William, I think, also a community builder. If you follow them, you're gonna see that they are sharing AWS technical knowledge, and those are the things that are gonna have you be accepted when you apply to be a community builder. With a heroes, you get invited into becoming a hero. So someone from AWS, it's not always me, someone from AWS will see you sharing that technical knowledge, and then you'll be invited to become a hero. But you have to share, be a thought leader in the space, sharing technical knowledge. And then the next question from Daniel: how can someone who's AWS certified solutions architect or developer as associate get a solid understanding of AWS skills and experience that can prepare him for securing AWS cloud opportunities? It goes back to building on AWS. Check those tutorials as your first place to start. The reason I'm sharing the tutorials is the first place to start. But as you get comfortable, build your own applications, but build things that you can put out there, and there'll be evidence for you when you are looking for roles. So building is most important. I'm not discounting getting certified, but you have to match that. You have to match that with building. So build solutions are hands-on. Then I see another one from Clint. After learning the AWS skills, how do you know where the market is? The market is everywhere. So you want to be on LinkedIn, you're going to be on Twitter, maybe even, but I see it especially on LinkedIn, and that's where you're going to search for roles, the role that you actually want to go into, companies that you want to work for. You're going to start following them on LinkedIn so that you can see when they advertise roles. That's how you're going to know where the market is. And but making sure that you are in the communities where everyone is, so that you can see when people talk about roles that are available. How can you overcome imposter syndrome and self-sabotage as far as career growth is concerned? I'm going to talk about imposter syndrome. I don't think we ever overcome it. You learn how to manage imposter syndrome. I have imposter syndrome. I think we all suffer from it. But what I found to be a practical way to manage it is, and I find this to be a very practical way, write down all your achievements so far. So every time you start to feel like I'm not good enough, you reference those achievements. It's another exercise that I've been giving to some of my mentors here internally at AWS. Write those achievements so far, so that even when you go for an interview, there'll be your script for, they say, tell us what have you done. You've got those achievements that you've written down, and you can just recite those, and that I found that to be a very helpful way of overcoming imposter syndrome. Another way that I'm learning now is you young people, you call it staying in your lane. We tend to compare ourselves a lot with others. I do that a lot. And I find that every time when I compare myself with others, I feel inadequate. You cannot do that because you don't know what their background is. You don't know a lot about them. And I'm learning that to just stay in my lane and focus on the things that I want to focus on. And also having goals and things that you want to achieve. If you don't have a goal and you're just floating around, and then you look at people who to you look like they're doing things, you're going to feel inadequate. Have your goals and focus on them. Don't compare yourself with others, because that's the quickest way to have the imposter syndrome, to go into depression, think you're not good enough, and you cannot afford to do that to yourself. What evidence does a cloud engineer present apart from certifications, like a developer can present his or her GitHub link? Because exactly that, cloud engineer just presenting your certifications, you'll be amazed at how no one cares. When I was looking to join AWS, first role that I applied for here was a solutions architect, and I was certified, but I was not building on AWS. I think the last time that I did any practicals was when I was preparing for the certification. Then I passed and I didn't touch AWS again. And then I saw a solution architect role at AWS and I applied. And I thought I could walk in and say I'm certified. They didn't even ask, they didn't care. And when I tried to weave it into the conversation, they didn't care, because why should they care? They're looking to hire people who can build, not looking to hire people who can pass certifications. So you need to evidence that you can build. So same, that's the evidence, cloud engineer, building solutions and presenting them on GitHub, or writing about the things that you are building. So if you because there are different types of cloud engineers, some will be hands-on building on AWS, but you could be the cloud engineer who's a solution architect in a way, so you're not really building. Talk about solutions and how you arrive to solutions. What technology would you choose for this and why? I'll give you an example. Say they ask you, you're gonna deploy an application on AWS. How would you deploy it? I remember the interview that I had, the one that I didn't pass. They said, how would you deploy a 3-tier application on AWS? And I chose the EC2 architecture. Now you must as a solution architect, you must be able to answer when they ask you why did you go for EC2 versus going for serverless. So and also if you now went for the serverless architecture, you must be able to answer when they ask you why. So if you're going to become a solutions architect, to someone who must be able to answer those why questions, able to answer the trade-offs. What are the pros and cons of solution A versus solution B? So you must be someone who can answer those questions. And how you want to arrive at that, you read a lot. You want to hang around a lot of thought leaders, and that's how you're going to become that thought leader who can actually talk to all of that. And okay, yeah, building products, that is it. And yeah, I don't see any other questions. So if there's anyone with any other questions and you want to unmute yourself and say something, that's also okay. You can do that as well.
Hello, guys.
Hello.
Yes, this is Daniel, and so thank you very much for that information. It has really helped us to understand AWS. I believe most of us we are inspiring to join AWS. That's why we are keenly listening to your advice. Maybe could there an opportunity like internship virtual that you can share with us, where you can be getting these hard-on skills to prepare us maybe to graduate to where you are? Thank you.
Okay, so we do internships at AWS. Let me just share, but the only thing I will tell you, with internships, you have to be in the city where you're going to do the internship. I'm sure you can understand, because you need to be close to the most senior people. So we don't tend to have internships here in Africa a lot. They tend to be at the Seattle office or the London office or the New York office. So you would have to be based there in order to get the internship. And chances are, well, it's not even chances are, for sure, they're not going to fly you from South Africa or from Kenya to New York so that you can be an intern there. So you'll find that those opportunities will go to the people who already stay there. But now you are saying that you want to join AWS. And I know people always say this, but then I always say, and I know you're gonna say, oh, easy for me to say, you don't have to work for AWS. You can work for customers of AWS. Do you know how many big customers that we have? I've been seeing this, especially here in South Africa a lot. I'm gonna share a link of where you can get to see all the jobs that we have at AWS. BMW has got a plant and assembly. I think the C classes that we drive here are assembled here, just outside of Johannesburg. They are a customer of AWS and they are hiring big time. And if you get hired by BMW, they're gonna send you to Germany to learn how they do things. And then you're gonna come back to South Africa and work. With that, next to AWS, would you still insist that you wanna work at AWS? Just because it's AWS? Because that's BMW, that's another big brand as well. So don't limit yourself and say, I wanna work for AWS. If you wanna work with AWS, meaning you wanna work on their technology, open yourself up to big customers of AWS as well, big and small startups who are building on AWS. Because I think a lot of us, we look at the big techs and we think that's the ultimate and that's where it has to be. Why? Why is it? Because everyone is talking about it, because you have these very established companies who are building on AWS, and I can tell you they provide, if not better, the same level of lifestyle as what you get at AWS. Big banks, there's a bank in the US, Capital One, building on AWS, and lots of banks here in South Africa. These banks that I'm talking about, Standard Bank, ABSA, that I've worked for, building on AWS. Insurance companies. So don't limit yourself like that, because if you're gonna say, I'm obsessing about AWS, then you're gonna spend your entire lifetime not giving anyone else a chance because you wanna go to AWS. Sometimes we tend to close doors for ourselves like that. So open your scope up to not just AWS. I'm not saying you mustn't, but also customers of AWS also are an opportunity for you. But I've shared the link where you can share, when you can check the jobs, but definitely internship, you'd have to be based in that country, and they're not gonna transport you to the US to be an intern. So you would have to get all the experience here first, and by the time you are able to travel or move to the UK, you're an experienced person. They only hire out of Africa to US, UK experienced people, because they're hiring experienced people. They're hiring a lot of solutions architects right now from Africa and moving them to the UK. But you need to be, I'm seeing a lot of that happening, but you need to be experienced. They're not gonna hire you unexperienced for that. Clint, other than LinkedIn, do I have a YouTube channel? I'd say no. I used to publish things on YouTube last year, but I have not been publishing this year. So I'm not really doing anything there. LinkedIn, and I'm on Twitter as well. You can find me on Twitter as well. I'll show you my handle on Twitter. That's it. That's it really, but I share a lot of the information that I share on LinkedIn. So if you really want to see the stuff that I talk about, it's on LinkedIn. Okay, Adeline, it looks like that's it.
Okay, thank you so much, Veliswa, for the insightful session that you have had. Any question about Veliswa or about our today's session, you can post in the chat or do a follow-up after the session. Yes, so I think, like, for me, the main thing is getting a mentor. Not necessarily to ask someone to be your mentor, but they come by default. William Mukoyani can attest to this. During as in Africa time, Terence became our mentor by default. He was there for us through the journey, and he also went forward to encourage us to do the solutions architect. that helped most of us to secure jobs in some of the companies. Yes, so getting a mentor is a cool thing, and I'll advise. I can also volunteer to be a mentor. Yes, so thank you guys for everything and for your time to join the meeting. I wish you well and have a great weekend. I think we can take photo. Mark, anything from your end?
I have nothing. Thank you.
Can all turn on our videos? Mark will help me with this.
The certification as such, I think it's more about what you know.
Terence,
Okay.
That's why
Hi, Terence.
some of the job notifications. It's
Okay.
more about
Hello, Veliswa. Sorry, I'm in two meetings. I'm leaving a class and I'm in your meeting also. So I hope you understand. That's why I was keeping quiet.
That's fine.
So thanks for the session. Thanks for the session. Thanks for the effort, Adeline and Mark and the entire team. We really appreciate having you on call. And I missed you in Las Vegas. I was totally unable to catch up with you. When you were left, I was right. When I was right, you were left. It just was chaos.
Do you guys know what Terence did in Las Vegas? He just hung with
Pardon?
all the Americans. You just hung with all the Americans. You're like, no, I'm
No,
not talking to
no,
Africans
no.
in
I
Las
was with
Vegas. That's what you did.
No, I was with the Seinu. I was with the Seinu even on last day. I mean, the Senegalese.
Technically, Senegalese, he stays in Dubai. So you did not want to hang around Africans in Las Vegas. That is what
I was
I'm
with
telling myself.
I was with the entire Kenyan crew there. I was with John. I was with name them, all of them. Kevin, all the Kenyan community builders were there because I had a broken leg, and should anything go wrong with me, they were the ones to carry me. And that's part why I was not able to get you.
Yes, I'm glad you could.
Although I know Kevin caught up with you.
Yes, I met Kevin and I met Frank.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great. So if you can do switch on your video so you don't miss out. I just count to 5. If anyone else wants to switch on the video, I think. All right, cool. Cool. All right, I'll just count to 5. We can just like wave or something, or just smile. I think smile is fine for today. So in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Awesome.
Yeah, great. Awesome. Yeah, I think I've taken a few. Thank you very much for coming through today.
Thank you.
Really thankful. Adeline, I don't know if you have any other thing to say.
From my end, no. Tony said hi. He was invited for hiking. You guys are encouraged to go for hiking. Most of the developers in the house. Yes.
Hiking out there. Oh, I must visit you guys again. I can go hiking with all of you.
Yes, you should come for a week.
Nice.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone. Thank you. Nice to meet you all.
Bye. Thanks for coming.
Bye, Doreen. Bye.